The third part of this series of describing how to use Model My Watershed involves simulating water and pollutants over an annual time period. If you followed through the last example, you'll know that we used the site storm model to simulate a one-day storm event. At this point, you can change the model that you're using by clicking the Details button and then selecting the Model Edit button. That will take you back to the original model page, where we're going to select the Watershed multi-year model. The Watershed multi-year model simulates the average monthly water, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment flux using the generalized watershed loading function enhanced model version. This model is designed primarily for large, more rural areas. And once you select that button, the model will run, and in a matter of moments, you'll have the results displayed on the left-hand side of the screen, starting with hydrology and a drop-down that will allow you to select stream flow and various hydrologic parameters that are represented in the model. You can visualize these as a graph and in the table below specific to each month. But before we go any farther talking about the results, I want to strongly encourage you to go to wikiwatershed.org/help/model-help to explore and read the technical documentation about this model. It's very important that you understand how the model is operating and how to interpret the data from the model. Taking you specifically to the Watershed multi-year model discussion in wikiwatershed.org's help page. At this point, we'll start exploring more features within the model results. Again, note and look for the information buttons that will allow you to find more detail about specific parts of the model results shown on the left-hand summary page. Switching from the hydrology tab to the water quality tab, you'll see results for nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment, represented as tables. Notice that in the lower left-hand pane, in scrolling down, we can see that nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment are apportioned into various land cover categories within the watershed that you're modeling. Now, again, the power of Model My Watershed and its real utility is making changes to this watershed and seeing how those changes affect water, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment flux. We do this by selecting the Add Changes to this area button in the upper right. At this point, we'll see that we have options that appear for changing weather data, land cover, and conservation practices. And I'm going to talk specifically about changing the land cover and conservation practices. We do that by selecting those two buttons, land cover or conservation practice. We'll start with land cover. Selecting the land cover button will give you an interactive display that allows you to either select presets to change the land cover, perhaps to a prior year, or to customize the amount of individual land cover areas that are within your area. For example, changing forest to farmland or vice versa. We can also select the Conservation Practice tab and have access to 10 different rural and 4 urban conservation practices. Again, as you hover over these various conservation practices, a summary will appear at the bottom to describe what they are. The next step for implementing a conservation practice is to enter the amount of land area or length to modify with that conservation practice, and you will apply that change. At this point, you've run the model, you've implemented a change in the landscape, and the model has updated its results. But it's a good idea now to rename the scenario that you've developed. In this case, you can see in the upper right-hand corner, I have 3 icons that have appeared representing the 3 conservation practices that I changed in this scenario. But renaming your scenario will help you keep track of what you've done. And now we want to compare the changes in water, nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment flux to the current conditions. And we do that using the compare button. And the first thing we'll see is graphs that show hydrology changes and various metrics of hydrology between our current condition and the changes that you've made to your watershed. Note that you can switch between a graph view and a table view using the buttons in the upper right-hand corner. At this point, you can continue to add changes to the scenario you've just built. You can add a new scenario, or you can add changes to climate data and settings. I won't talk about changing climate data and weather or settings in this, but please refer to the help material for understanding how to go about making those changes in your modeled area. At this point, you've done a lot of work. You've created a new project with a different model. So it's a good idea to rename this project for future reference and share it. You do that by clicking the share button in the upper right-hand corner, enabling link sharing, and then you can copy and paste a link to your model and its results in documents and email. Finally, know that if you've created an account in Model My Watershed, that all of your projects are saved for future reference. You can go back and revisit those projects, continue to change them, and share them by creating an account at modelmywatershed.org.